Today's review is sponsored by The Price is Right, the new prostitute dating app, because love is not cheap.
Watch it, Alan, I'm shooting.
Tombs of the Blind Dead. In 1968, George Romero created the zombie genre that we know today with Night of the Living Dead. He would later on solidify the zombie genre with Dawn of the Dead in 1978. But between Night of the Living Dead and Dawn of the Dead, there were a few movies that were made to cash in on the success of Night of the Living Dead. The Living Dead at Manchester Morgue, aka Let Sleeping Corpses Lie, Shockwaves, Corpse Eaters, and the Blind Dead series, the first movie in that series being Tombs of the Blind Dead. We're talking about Tombs of the Blind Dead today because my copy of Living Dead at Manchester Morgue has just shit the bed, and I gotta get a new one. This is a Spanish horror movie from 1972. Back in the 13th century, a group of evil knights known as the Templars were on a quest to achieve eternal life by way of human sacrifice. For their evil acts, they were executed and left outside for the crows to peck out their eyes. Flash forward to present day 1972. A group of friends are on vacation, but due to emotions and misunderstandings, one young woman strays away from the herd and makes her way to the castle of the Templars. Her presence there results in the blind dead rising from the grave to consume the flesh of the living, as the living dead often do. So it's like Night of the Living Dead, but with swords and horses. I enjoyed Tombs of the Blind Dead to an extent. I wish I liked this movie more than I do. Overall, I was disappointed with it, which is a shame because this movie does have a loyal fan base, and I get it. It has some good atmosphere, and I love the idea. I didn't hate this movie, I just wish it took advantage of its idea. The zombies are very good. They're treated more like a curse and not this worldwide plague. They're these half-rotten, mummified creatures, and the way they're filmed gives them this otherworldly quality. Plus, they ride horses, which sets them apart from other zombies. And the movie does have a good atmosphere. I love me some good, bloody kills in my horror movies, but a good atmosphere will always take a movie to another level. And we get some decent kills. They're mostly people being ripped apart and eaten alive by zombies, but they are well done. And there is a scene involving some swords in a flashback, plus there's this great off-screen kill towards the end of the movie, which I'm not going to spoil here, but it does make the final body count difficult to do. And then there's the issues I have with this film. Mind you, these are just my issues. I understand that people like this movie. These are just my personal problems that I have with movies in general. The first act is good, the third act is good, but the middle act kind of brings the movie to a crawl. The main focus is our two main characters, Betty and Roger. trying to find out who killed their friend Virginia.
Feroces. Han debido torturarla. Ninguna de las heridas que presenta son ni siquiera graves.
Entonces, ¿de qué ha muerto?
Now, Virginia was the first victim of the Blind Dead, and the only reason she was at their ruins in the first place was because of jealousy. She got jealous of her two friends and wanted to get away from them, so she decided to jump off of a moving train in the middle of nowhere. Clearly that was the best decision.
¡Virginia!
The main focus in the second act is her two friends trying to find out what happened. This is where the movie slows down in a bad way. Not because it's an investigation. There are plenty of horror movies that involve people investigating something, and they're very well done. It's just that in Tombs of the Blind Dead, the investigation isn't that interesting. Mostly because we already know what happened. The dead are rising from the grave in this location. There's no mystery here. It's not like something like Ring-Oo, where you have this cursed videotape and people are trying to figure out how to stop the curse before they die, or trying to find the origins of this videotape. No, again, we know exactly what's going on. In this area, we have the blind dead coming back from the grave to eat the living, and we're just waiting for the characters to catch up to what we already know. There is one moment that picks up the second act a little, and that's when Virginia comes back from the dead in the morgue. But this is just one moment in a slog of a second act. The third act eventually picks up, but this leads to my other two issues with this movie. First of all, there's an unnecessary rape scene. I have no problem with rape in my horror movies if it fits the story. As disturbing as it is to watch, as long as it has an impact on the story, as long as it affects the story in some way, or at least affects the character that it happened to, in a way that begins some kind of catalyst in the story, I'm okay with it. Like in I Spit on Your Grave, that's a rape revenge movie. The main character gets sexually assaulted, and then she goes to get revenge on all the men who did it to her. So yeah, okay, it has a purpose to get from one thing in the story to the next thing in the story. But in Tombs of the Blind Dead, it just happens, and then everybody moves on as if nothing happened. I mean, hell, you have a movie like Gutterballs, which has a very nasty scene, and it's only done for shock value, but it at least has an effect on the story. It's a catalyst for everything else that happens.
You think sorry will get you off so easy? You got off last night, fuck. Tonight's my turn.
And my main issue with Tombs of the Blind Dead is it doesn't take advantage of its idea. I've mentioned this so many times on this channel, and I will probably mention it many more times. My biggest pet peeve is when a filmmaker has an idea but does nothing with it in their movie. And that's the case with Tombs of the Blind Dead. The main idea of this movie is that these are blind zombies. Everything I've read about this movie, all the advertisements, every review I've seen, every article and what have you that I've seen about this movie, that's the main draw. These are blind zombies that hunt based on sound. Even the back of the box that I have right here says, "Don't move, don't breathe, don't let them hear your heart beating." This could make for some great suspenseful moments, But the fact that the zombies are blind is pretty inconsequential. There's one scene, one short moment, where the zombies can hear a woman's heart beating. Other than that, the fact that the zombies are blind doesn't really affect the story. First of all, they ride horses, and these horses can see. So right away that makes the whole blind thing pretty useless, unless the horses are blind too. And again, other than that one short scene, the blindness never really comes into play. Every time people see these zombies, they just start screaming their heads off and running around, making all sorts of noise, not even attempting to be quiet. You never even see a moment where somebody says, "Shh, they're blind." Imagine how suspenseful this could have been. Hell, you don't really need to imagine it because there have been a lot of other movies that have used this idea. One of the characters is hiding in a corner and they can't really get out because there's a zombie blocking the way in that room, and the zombie is feeling around looking for them and they're trying to stay as quiet as possible, and then the only thing that saves them is one of their friends make some noise. That would have been great. But nope, the filmmakers decided to do little to nothing with the fact that these zombies are blind. Overall, Tombs of the Blind Dead was a letdown for me. It's not a terrible movie, and I understand that it does have its fan base. I'm glad people can watch and enjoy this one. It just didn't work for me. But just because it didn't work for me doesn't mean that it won't work for you. I recommend checking this one out for yourself and deciding whether you like it or not on your own. And with that, let's get to the Grindhouse rankings. Unfortunately, I don't know the body count for this one due to the fact that a lot of characters are killed off camera in the third act. The kills mostly consist of being eaten alive by zombies, but we do get someone getting slashed to death and drained of blood, and we do get one person who is burned alive. It reaches the zombie requirements with flesh eating and corpses rising from the grave. There's a little nudity with one woman's ass that is slightly obscured by a fire, but you do see crack. The zombies look good. They're more mummy-like than most zombies, and you mix that with the fact that these zombies are knights, it makes for a good design. The kills are pretty good. If you like zombie flesh eating, you'll like this one. The characters are serviceable. They aren't the most interesting, but they do work in the story. The first act and the third act are good, but the second act drags a bit. It's disappointing that the film doesn't take advantage of the blind zombies. It barely affects the story. I'm giving this a 2.9 out of 5. It's not a bad movie, just disappointing for me. But I understand that this flick has its fans, so you might like it more than me. As always, I want to thank all of you for continuing to watch and support this channel. Please leave a comment down below. Let me know your favorite blind antagonist from a horror movie. For me, it's the graboids from Tremors, hands down. This is the Maniac, here to remind you that the Grindhouse will never die. Ow! Who put that wall here?